Hey, Thrand here. How many people do we have out there? It's only showing me one person at the moment. Looks like it's laggy because I got thumbs up before I actually got any viewers. Yamacle X or Yamacle X, yo, see that one? Seeing five on your end, awesome, awesome. Uh, Dominator 46, it looks like. Hello, everyone, from Ronald Zwackle. Dominator 46 again, 9 now. All right. So we're doing pretty good. We got a few people coming in. I want to give it a few minutes before we start answering questions. One of the upcoming projects we have is we're going to be doing a historical shield. Already talked about that, I think, in the other video I put out yesterday. I don't think we have a lot of views on that one because most people don't tune in to videos that seem like they're mostly about talking or upcoming projects and stuff on the channel. I've noticed that it's pretty much up there for the action. They want to see something actually tested or done. I think that's pretty much our whole thing is the action channel, pretty much. Everything's like old poor man's Mike Loads or something testing historical arms and armor. Yeah, hey, Thrand. I'm hoping it actually shows me everything that's going on properly. I have never used this. I wasn't aware that I had to have Google Chrome. I use Mozilla Firefox. I feel like it's a little safer. I have more options on it. I've been using it for years. And they made me install Chrome, which I had to have Caddy run it here in a hurry, put Chrome in just so I could go live. And I thought that it would just do the little countdown, notify y'all, and I would go live right there. When it got done, and they counted all the way down and then stopped, and nothing happened. So we had to figure it out. Oh, thank you. Monk the Mongol. Monk the Mongol. Keep up the good work, Thrand. I appreciate it. Looks like we have 17 people on now. I think the delay probably didn't help either, and I don't know if everybody got notifications properly since I didn't go through Google Chrome, and that wouldn't be YouTube's fault. It'd be mine because I didn't realize I had to use Google Chrome. Dark Omega. Hi. I'm Thing, huh? Thrand. But anyway, no one's asking anything or saying anything, but what I had covered in the topic yesterday is what would people like to see? I want to know what kind of videos you're interested in. Like I brought up, some people complained about fantasy stuff, but I noticed that like Shad at Shadversity gets a lot of attention from his fantasy speculations of what different fantasy races would use as weapons, like dwarves and elves and so on. I mean, I don't want to rip that off, but maybe I could do Alpha or the very, very, I guess old Scandinavian dwarves or something, elves. But the problem is they're not really such a physical creature, unless you really want to read into it what they might have been getting their myths and legends from. Oh, your work? Proto guys at work? I've done that before, be standing there, supposed to be working and looking at my phone or something. Oh, thank you so much. Definitely. I appreciate anybody telling me they enjoy the content. I enjoy making it. If I didn't, I wouldn't be doing it. I mean, that's what's hurting me is right now YouTube has, I don't know if they're not notifying people or just what they've done and with ads in general, monetization. We don't make the money we used to. As our subscribers went up, we gradually increased in money just from, the channel, so it supported itself. Now it's getting to where we're not putting out as many videos as we normally would of the content we want to put out because we're not getting the funds in. I know we have a Patreon account, and people do donate there, and I'd like to thank everybody at Patreon for doing so. And yeah, that helps us out immensely. That's where we get our a lot of our funds to make our analog gel heads. I've been looking for a male mannequin because I'm sorry, those two female mannequins that I have that we've torn up over the years to put armor on and stuff, yeah, I don't really feel great about beating up the old shield maiden there, you know. But I'd love to have a male mannequin. I think it would look much better. But believe it or not, those are harder to find. Yes, I'm going to be doing a Viking shield like Yark Sprave. Somebody got the hint right there. You know, I had commented on this video. I do like his shield, but I found out the thing's extremely heavy. I mean, it's not within the weights of a Viking Age shield. So my idea is I have some concepts on, I think a lot of the shields were heavy rawhide. And I'm going to be honest, I think the rawhide, just like in some of the native tribes and traditional tribes where they use rawhide almost primarily, like the Native Americans did, like they do in some tribal cultures, are mostly rawhides. They're rawhide stitched together and it becomes like a solid piece that gives like plastic. Well, what my theory is on the really thin Viking shields is that the two layers of rawhide back and front are over a wooden frame that makes it thicker. So you find the rivets or the bent over nails or whatever you want to call them show a certain width that they believe that they have, and then it tapers down to almost something that's, you know, paper thin, you know, at the edge. So why would you do that? Most people think it's not really paper thin, but I mean for wood it'd be extremely thin. For rawhide, that's a really heavy house. So the idea I have is that they allow the outside to kind of give, you know, so when you hit it, it would bend and warp and straighten back out. So that would increase the resilience to edges on it, and it already is cut resistant. So what would end up happening is when you hit the edge of the shield, not only would it not cut as easily, it would give and bend, and you could still get it stuck in there. I mean, that's not something we're arguing about. I mean, you could still stick it in there, but I think it would actually resist any cuts against the surface and piercing, like from arrows and so on, so much better. I mean, I think it'll perform almost like some kind of polycarbonate. I mean, against melee weapons from the time period. And be extremely light. I mean, consider that you're not going to have wood. You're just worried about drying out the leather, which I'm going to see if there's any way to preserve that. Because the problem with rawhide is if it gets wet, let's say you were out on a ship in your skip, or you were, in a rainstorm or I guess a thunderstorm while you were in a battle, it could absorb moisture, and that would, you know, ruin your effect there. It turns into a real pliable material. But I think there's probably ways to use wax and stuff or some kind of sealant on it after it's dry. Try that out. I will see what kind of wood. The actual one they found that on, I believe, was a pine. You know, the one that was very thin, which makes it even more amazing that the shield, you know, had such thin wood that tapered, you know, was what they assumed. So that would be ridiculously thin, and, you know, even with some kind of rawhide over it. Arthur von Eschen made one, and it was a lot more resilient than you would expect. If you go by, sorry, I have something popping up here in chat from someone else. But if you go by and check out Warzekas on YouTube, he's done a four-part series of when I and him were up in Eagan, Minnesota, near Minneapolis, and I also spoke Viking martial arts, and we tested the shield, and the theory was the reason it was so thin is so that when you cut into it, stuff would stick in it easily, and you could manipulate the blade, which it did behave like that. The one Arthur von Eschen, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the shield. It may be the perfect rendition, and I could be 100% wrong, and, you know, mine worked terribly, but I honestly think that possibly it was a more resilient shield, being that thin out of the, you know, like a war shield, E-Skjaldur, however you want to pronounce it. And I think that, you know, that could be a possibility too, that it might not have been so thin because it was to be so weak, you know? I mean, to allow things to just easily stick in it. So we'll have to find out. I mean, that's just, it's a theory and an idea, and we want to get the exact weight after I produce it in that manner and test it in every way we can. And I'm going to probably send a piece to Jorg Spravik so he can test it as well with his actual devices that he creates that I can't produce. I can't replicate that. I can do a crossbow or something, or bow, or shoot it with various things that he doesn't have. But I won't have anything. I can guesstimate about how much power he's got, but I can't do those exact tests. So, let me read some people's chat here. Yes, like a Zulu shield. Monk the Mongol says like a Zulu shield. Yes, very much. You all saw the William Wallace versus Shaka Zulu back in Deadliest Warrior. And that's where this channel started. Our channel actually started arguing with Deadliest Warrior. I was told about how it was going to be this great program on Spike TV years ago, and they already knew that I did Viking reenactment, and I was a Viking historian, and I love the Viking Age, and they got passed down to me by my father to tell me stories about stuff, and I kind of like grew up into it, going, "Wow, that was our ancient ancestors," and from my line and stuff, and I'd sit there and go, "Wow, this is going to be a good episode." But putting who? The samurais, really? And I went and saw that episode, and I was like, wait a minute, the Viking's not just some big jock that was a farmer that didn't know anything about anything and decided he wanted to go out and rob somebody, get some money. So he grabbed an axe and a shield and ran out there and started swinging at people. That's what they tried to portray it as. They didn't really have a right shield. It was kind of a crazy episode. You test armor from one person, but not from the other person. And it was all just the way they did it. It was almost, it might as well have been a video game. That's where the producer got the idea. He was playing Mortal Kombat, and then he saw, I'm not joking, I've heard this from Barry Jacobson, the associate producer. He supposedly, the story was with his kids, he was playing Mortal Kombat, and he'd just seen 300. And he went, wow, what if this was a TV program? So I think that was the wrong basis to start it with. They should have had people like, that do programs for like Mike Loads and stuff, set something up like that if they wanted to do it. People out of place, out of time, fighting each other. I'm trying to read some comments here to see what's coming in. Lindenwood would be great. I mean, I'm sorry, I would like to do that if I could do it, but limewood, basically. The metal and shield construction, most of it was bog iron. They could make some really good bog iron for like a umbo or a center boss. And the main part would be the nails or rivets. Some people will call them rivets because some things were riveted, but usually they were just bit over nails that held, like, I'm sure they used glues and so on, like milk glues or hide glues as adhesives. But the center boss of the umbo protected the hand. And the whole point to that was the part if that somebody hit directly on that, or an arrow hit it or something, that was your hand. So you would lose your hand. So in return, that's the main parts would be your center boss. But like the shield that they found, the one we're talking about that I'm going to be reconstructing, had places on it with pieces of metal around the outside, like little clamps. So my theory on that, they weren't uniform and all the way around like it was some kind of decoration or held something to it or something. It was just they were in different places around it. I'm assuming there was places where it got damaged. And I was thinking about this. Would you put just a clamp of metal in that one spot over wood? That seems kind of odd. That's why I'm thinking it was leather, because then the idea of that, then yes, you just clamp that over there. You would now have that repaired, wherever it got cut into, if it was on the edge fairly deep. And I don't think it's going to go that deep. That's the point. But basically, that was it. Some metal rimming was used, but that was very rare. So what we're assuming, in the Vendel period and the Migrational Age, you do see some shields that have metal rimming and more metal pieces to them and decorative pieces. But some shields that end up with decorative pieces on them, they're in odd places, and it may have been a way of taking a shield that you already had, and it took some kind of damage, and they just plastered something on it to cover it up too. And that's very plausible. Plus, there's also many ways for laminated shields of just repairing them. You can fill in the wood if there's wood in between with different adhesives, and they had them back then. Like I said, hide glue, milk glue, stuff like that, and laminate it again so it's possible to repair a shield almost as well as it was after it was damaged. But normally, if they got damaged too badly, they just tossed it, and the main thing they saved was the umbo or center boss, and then, redid everything else. It was pretty quick and easy for them to do the wood, I'm pretty sure. That what would have been difficult is drying raw hides and stuff like that if they're using raw hides. Some shields use linens. Ah, hail. Somebody said $2. What is the question? Do you have a question, Sam Bakich? I hope I pronounced your name right. Bakich? Hope I didn't mispronounce it. Oh, the Ulfbert was that kind of means wolf tooth. I mean, if you really think about it in Old Norse, so a lot of people say that it was not an Old Norse thing on the sword. But there, you're saying it's made of crucible steel instead of iron like every other sword. It was made out of hard iron, the best hard iron they could find. So we do find examples of them. Most of them are not crucible steel, true crucible steel. They're very good swords. They're very well made, and they're the hardest iron available, which is steel. I mean, that's just what they called it. I talked to Craig Johnson in Eagan, Minnesota. He's part of Arms and Armor, so he's been making and hardening steel for years. Matter of fact, I have, a lot of people haven't seen it. There was a tour of Arms and Armor, which, yeah, if I can even talk properly right now. Christopher Poor was the owner of Arms and Armor, but he also is the one who inherited the Ewart Oakeshott Institute. So he has all the artifacts or the actual swords from the period that are preserved in his collection there, and most of the swords they make come from swords in that collection. So everything you get from them is going to be a replica of an exact blade, or close as they can make it. So they've examined all these and had them examined by different people through X-rays, other people who work with metal, and some of the Ulfberts. I don't know if he has an actual Ulfbert in the collection. I don't think so. That would have been the first thing they would have showed me, I'm sure. But from what I'm understanding, is they're very good swords, and it was a highly sought after blade. In other words, the Ulfbert. So we see different spellings on these blades. This is one thing that's a weird one. So they'll say this is a real one, this is a fake one, and so on. But most of them are really good quality and lots of good steel in them. So what you've got to look at is his theory is what happened is somebody went to a smith and they heard about the famed Wolfport. Supposedly there's probably something we lost. Like it's kind of like a story like you would have Excalibur. Like I want Excalibur. And some king, I want Excalibur. So he collects all this metal, goes to the best smiths he can find, and asks them, "Can you make me the Ulfberg? I want the Ulfberg." And they will, what is the Ulfberg? I don't know. They're sitting there trying to figure it out. Well, what was really sharp and it's really flexible, and they knew what flexible blades were because they have this in history talking about pulling blades over their head, and snapping back, and so. Yeah, it's So then do I have the hard iron here? I've collected all this, and he has like really good hard iron. Oh, sure. How much are you going to pay us? So, well, we can make the Wolfbear. We can make it. So they made it, and that's why none of them look exactly the same. And that's his theory. Now, I'm not saying that's it, but it kind of makes sense that somebody was trying to make something that was a famed sword, and they wanted it, and they were having smiths going, "Yeah, we can make it." And it's not that they weren't good smiths, but they had the right materials to work with. They could make a good sword at the time period. Obviously. So if somebody had collected it, then yes. I'm looking here, trying to see what people are saying. Yes, I've seen that on Nova too about it being crucible steel. But remember, you got a bunch of samples of Ulfburr. So the problem is this the real Ulfburr? And yes, it's crucible steel, and we have one that might be or appear to be crucible steel, and then these aren't, but they're really good swords. See, most all the ones that say that on there's very few. I mean, I think there are a few that are basically junk that somebody put that on. But normally, most of them are good swords. At the time period, they're the highest quality. And yes, they rate up there with any katana. European swords are different though; they're made differently. They function slightly differently, and I mean, like the flex too, like they talk about the swords. Some of them are quite brittle though too, even though they believe they're crucible steel. The idea of crucible steel. The Ulfburr, from what I've heard, are some of them are the edges are hardened. It's hardened. It's kind of like spring steel. They hold up well, but I mean, they can get damaged too, as they're not indestructible swords. So I don't know on the crucible steel thing for sure. I've heard a lot of people argue that no, they've seen all the testing, and yes, if you take one little like you test one area of the blade, it might appear to be crucible steel, and you test the other areas, they're not totally uniform. So I don't know. I know that they're high enough quality that yes, they are amazing for the time period. They are totally out of place, out of time. They're really good blades. But that's why he had the theory that somebody collected all the hard iron that they could find, which is steel. I mean, that's basically steel, the best they had at the time. That's what they made edges. Like if you look at the bog axe I did, the video, that axe is you can even see it. It's sandwiched in near the edge. So what they do is kind of do it like a pencil and an axe, and you use softer iron and made your body of the axe, and then you put an edge in it. Most pattern welded blades that we find historically are the same way. They don't have a lot of, the best steel or hard iron available during that period. So what they do is they make this edge steel basically, or hard iron. The whole edge is all the way around, and a good portion of it, and then the rest of the blades pattern welded of different grades of iron, and let's say hard iron or steel. And that's what makes your sword, but that also makes it give. It gives it some flexibility. They talk about the blades being ropey. They don't say like they're real springy. They talk about them being ropey and, names like that, So yes, I think it was still possible under extreme stress to bend some of these blades, but you could bend them back, but they did not bend easily, and they did have some flex to them. Not every blade was like the wolf burr, supposedly actually have a flex to it, kind of like a spring rack. So that was the big thing about it. You're actually heat treating and, trying to prepare a sword that is all steel instead of more hard iron, then trying to do the other. I guess that's enough on the wolf burr, because I don't know enough about every sample. That's what I can sit there and tell you. I read this article and it talked about these 2 or 3 samples. I read this other article where they tested I don't know how many of them in museums and so on, and they'll all come up with different. But I did like the Nova episode. It was a really good episode. Can you defeat somebody with? I was going to look at this one. That's interesting. Can you defeat somebody? This is Roland. Is it Zweigel? Roland Zweigel. Do you think you could defeat someone with a sword and shield using a longsword? My brother and I tried it, and really difficult to get around the shield. Yeah, it is very difficult to get around the shield. It is possible to do it. That was one of our arguments about Viking versus samurai. Is from Deadliest Warrior was the katana, and that's what they try to act like was this, weapon that made him superior against the Viking sword and shield. I mean, they use a cannonball and all that, make the shield. The point being is they act like a katana was superior to a sword and shield, but they treated the shield as a weapon. In other words, they tested it to see if you could punch with it. They tested it to see how you could bash with it. And I'm sitting there going, why did they test it to see how well you could defend with it? They should have set up some mock fighting between multiple people, or at least did some analysis on it and realized the shield is part of your armor or protection. You use it to defend yourself with. And it is very difficult to get around, giving the advantage to not only defend at the same time as you can attack. Because obviously it's not like, sword and buckler, where the sword is part of your defense and has to be out in front of you all times. The shield can literally be in front of you, and you can be ready to throw an attack anywhere you want. I mean, so as soon as he engages, if you defend with your shield properly, you can be countering instantly. So that's why I was sitting there going, really? He's everything he's got, he doesn't use a shield. He's using, the only thing he would have a advantage with is probably his yari, which is what he'd be using more than likely, not a cannonball or a katana. Katana would be his backup. He would draw that unless he absolutely had to. Unless he got grappling, he'd probably draw one of his smaller blades, or wakizashi, or what we call tanto now, but they had a lot of other type of daggers that we don't have the names for anymore that had nothing to do with the modern tanto blade. So, anyway, the whole point I'm getting at is the sword and shield would make a massive difference in the battle, one-on-one in single combat. And Vikings were used to spears, so a yari, or two-handed spear, is something a Viking would be used to fighting anyway. He'd try to rush it. He'd try to get past the point. As soon as he got past the point, he would get in and start. Either you would end up in a grappling match with him, if you were the spearman, or you would end up getting blows thrown at you until you could disengage and try to use yours. And most yari were quite long. A lot of the samurai, the commanders and stuff, would use the shorter yari. The reason they did this is because, they didn't really fight in the line. But if you had one of the longer yari that they used to fight in actual spear walls, the formations, then I don't know. I don't think he'd be using that in single combat. So it'd have to be like a smaller pole armor. Naginata were only used for a short period of time because there wasn't a lot of leg armor, and they were very effective. And I'm talking about this is Austria-Geru and so on, not necessarily the samurai themselves who didn't have leg armor. It was the foot. So the Naginata became really popular for a while, but then it lost favor to the Yari. The Yari's always been their primary weapon. Travis Young says, "Hey Thrand, great work, and I love your content. Keep it up. May the All-Father guide your wisdom." No, I agree with that one. I do look to our ancestral gods for help if I can. I've had some strange dreams when I'm doing the episodes and working on them. It sounds very odd, but I'll have dreams of like the situation, what it'll be in like a context like historically based, where like I have somebody explaining stuff to me from back then. It's pretty odd. I'll come up with like, is that right? I'm gonna have to try that and see if that's, if that makes sense, or pretty odd that I've had stuff like that take place. Eldrum and I are still friends. I haven't contacted him recently, but what happened, he used to live here and rent a room from me on the premises. So although he's really busy and he works his own job and all this thing and does everything he does, and he has a big social life, he likes to date ladies and stuff like that, we could find time to work on things together. He would take a long time to edit stuff. Sometimes we'd have videos ready, prepared to go out, or several of them, and he'd take forever to edit them. So I kind of like being able to edit myself now. I'm learning how to do it, so bear with me. I try my best. I'm doing all the editing, and my wife Caddy's doing all the filming. So, but the problem is he moved too far away, and he got with a lady that he was really interested in. He kind of moved out abruptly. I mean, it wasn't really like it upset us that badly, but he didn't even warn us. He kind of just moved out with her. He was gone for a while. And now I don't even think he's with the same lady anymore. He's moved into a house, but he's still too far away, and with his work and schedule, it was so hard for us to get stuff done before that it makes it almost impossible now. Can I say that he'll never ever come on again? Is like, if I run into him and we talk to each other and he wants to come on, but it would probably just be like a every once in a blue moon thing. It wouldn't be a norm. Like he would just be on with me. I've been looking to see if I could find anybody in the area that wants to work on like sword and shield, maybe some of the stuff like Roland Varzeka teaches, but also some of the stuff that I believe is appropriate too for like armored combat, because people have to understand that there's a difference between armored combat and unarmored combat. In armored combat, yes, there are techniques to kill a man outright, and then there are tournament style techniques that came about because people were trying not to kill each other and they were just pounding on each other and stuff. Does it mean they didn't get hurt? No. Tournament fighters got hurt, but they weren't supposed to outright kill the other guy as the years went on. Early period, yes, you could injure people and win the match that way and so on. But that's where you get your half swording, you get techniques from the manuals. They were talking about judicial duels and outright duels to the death is why they were worried about half swording, trying to stab into gaps and niches in armor, which is the way you defeat armor of that type, because you can't go through the actual armor effectively enough to I mean, I can't say that you couldn't go through any of it, because we'll find evidence there was a hole in it, and then we'll find evidence that you can't go through it because it can be all different various gauges and thickness, because the stuff was hammered out. Nowadays we get cold roll steel, we cold dish it out and hammer it and make armor. People do that all the time. It's all the same gauge, so whatever gauge you pick, that's the gauge it's going to be. Back then, you could decide to make the breastplate thicker and make it thinner towards the edges where it's not as necessary, but in the main areas like over the heart, belly, reinforce it, put an extra plate, But I'm just saying, the point is you couldn't say I can stab through a man's armor. They even have a text in one of the treaties or manuals that states that you might not be able to get through his gussets under here, like the mail. Like you might not even be able to get through there. In that case, you're going to have to figure something else out. Like you see pictures of them ripping the visor open if they can, or cutting straps. There's a famous story where they cut the straps to get up under here because the armor was really well encased when they were wearing later century plate. So, don't know how we got off on that tangent. I'm horrible about. Thrand versus Tarquin. Tarquin Gateslayer. Oh, that's a good one. I fought Tarquin Gateslayer at SCA. I was fighting the SCA a lot early on, and mostly just do that. Not necessarily totally HEMA, but we used to fight. He had a Nodachi, like a big Japanese greatsword type weapon. And I was fighting with a Dynax, SCA version, and they were tan. They will hurt you. And I had crappy gauntlets. If you look, you can see that I broke my knuckle. Yeah, the video's online. I don't know if the video where I actually got my knuckle broke is on there. There's a video online at the old Bioya, which was a internet bar, and back when they had those, people had to go use the internet somewhere, and they had coffee, and it was like an old putt-putt golf place style place with a golf place, miniature golf, and they had a volleyball court, and we'd fight out at the volleyball court area. And when I parried and blocked up, I had assumed that he was going to cut straight overhead. So I was going to kind of catch it, glance it, and then attack him and come across, right, and step in on it. Well, what ended up happening is when he cut down, he faked. Which some people don't realize. You can go to make a move and then change your whole motion, like pretend you're going one way and just boom. So when something comes in like that at you and you see it, you start to do something and then they do something else. It came straight in and I punched my fist with my crappy leather gauntlets. They were hardened, but to protect my hands, and I broke my knuckle. So I remember Torquin. Torquin was a good friend of mine. See what else we got. Okay. Having an item in each hand, especially shield, buckler, does not really nice against just one item. Oh, an update on Elgrim? I thought I just did. I don't know if I'm reading something old here. Yeah, Elgrim's living with some friends of his, some guys, I guess, in the house is what I'm understanding, where they all like chip in on stuff. He's no longer living here, so like I said, that's what's making it impossible for him to work with me on videos. And he doesn't really like being on videos. That's the other thing I don't know if a lot of people. He'd get really nervous, and he would get. I mean, that's what people actually sometimes. Is he wired? Is he on something? No, he was just that nervous that he was like, a lot of times because. I don't know what it was. It was just he doesn't like being in front of a camera. He's not like that in person. If he was giving a speech to somebody, he used to go to college here or university, whatever you want to call it. And he'd get up and give a speech beautifully, But on camera, something about that camera, he just didn't like it. He'd have to try to forget it was there. So I think he saw it as a relief when he moved and couldn't help. Like I said, it's not that he would never be in anything again, but it would probably just be, wow, he's here today. It wouldn't be like in every episode. It'd be too difficult to do. May's Eve tomorrow, yeah. I guess we'll be enjoying that. Were Vikings opposed to hand protection? See, that's a good one. We don't know if they had any hand protection because, see, the point is at that time period they weren't. I think the hand protection is kind of like what Roland Varzeka says. The large round that was from the migrational age that were almost flat or only slightly. Some were slightly lenticular, we see earlier, period, but they're still really large rounds. And they were lighter weight. The hand's almost always behind the shield. Anything you do with it, you can cut behind the shield. Yes, you can turn the shield other ways if you need to. Most people argue it has to always be straight up and down, but there are times when it twists or turns on its own, and things like that happen, and you keep your hand behind it, and you can pretty much, it's almost like using a buckler. You can stay behind that shield, and it's so large, you're probably not going to get hit in the hand if you time if your timing's right. Because the problem is people think you're going to engage with the sword and sword fence, and if you're using that type of shield, it's no longer necessary. I mean, it's not. It's actually before blades were capable of doing that. The blades weren't high enough quality. I shouldn't say they weren't high enough quality. Some probably weren't, but they were not using the swords in that manner. They'd gone back to like the Bronze Age up and early Iron Age into we start getting steel and swords that are hybrids of the hard iron and the soft iron mixed, and they got really good high quality swords. But they have little bitty quillion or cross guards and really tight pommels so you can throw the blade out. Now, what that tells you, if they're throwing the blade out in that manner, they're not worried about so much control and in fencing like you see on later century swords and the way they're set up. Is that saying that they were less effective? No, they had extreme cutting ability being used in that manner, and they were also not going to tire you as much using the cast blow type idea. Does that mean with the cast blow you can't engage and have the blade out there first in a fencing situation? No, and it doesn't mean you have to throw it full force either. You can still use the sword the same way. So, but I think most of the time it was used from behind the shield, since it was always paired with a larger shield or at least some sort of form of shield. Like you don't see it, you see gloves, but you don't see true gauntlets a lot of times when people are using sword and buckler. They do have real form-fitting tight gauntlets. I mean, that even on the smaller sword hilts will fit. I mean, people don't realize that they think they're all big, because of modern gauntlets and protection rules and stuff. That all the gauntlets were these big, huge, clam shell type things, and those didn't come out till later. So most of them were more elegant, even when they did have hand protection or mail protection. It was just on the back of the hand, kind of like the tekko on the back of the samurai armor, same kind of idea. It protected the hand. Wasn't the greatest protection in the world, but no, but you weren't supposed to get hit in the hand anyway. It wasn't like you were just going to get beat in the hand and not worry about it. Use your hand to defend with. You were very worried about getting hit in the hand. So proper technique, putting the sword out there properly is important. And I'm not saying the Vikings didn't parry at all with the blade. In certain situations, they probably had to, but the kind of cuts they were throwing, with the kind of power they were throwing from behind the shield, you probably did not want your blade engaging another blade. It would damage both blades. Almost any even modern blades that are really high quality, you're going to damage them if they get hit into each other somehow, even if one's just receiving and trying to absorb the shock. So they're the easiest thing to do with swords that can't handle that, like let's say old Bronze Age swords, you wouldn't want to beat them into each other. Uh, you use a shield with it. I mean, that's basically, unless that's just your blade and you're pulling it out to fight and scuffle or something, and you have no other choice, you use a shield with it. So I think that was your hand protection. But on the Viking Age hand protection, I mean, we don't know if they were using some kind of material that would deteriorate. Like if you put some leather over the back of your hand or you have some gloves, you're not going to find those in a grave. Some kind of mitts or something, you put a leather mitt on or something to help protect your hand or what have you. I'm just making stuff up here. And anything you want to put on to protect your hands, you can put some really heavy leather on. And I've used heavy leather and protected my hands from being damaged in historical reenactment. You wouldn't find that stuff though. It's the leather's gone, right? All you're going to find is rivets and if somebody had some kind of armor or buckles or so on that we actually recovered that survived. And under the proper conditions, because even that stuff will rust to nothing throughout the years if it's not somehow an aerobatic, I can't even speak, anaerobic environment or something without air. The oxygen causes the metal to rust because it oxidizes. So that's why bog finds are so good, and certain preserved blades we find are because the situation they were in, they were cut off from the oxygen. Modern compound bow go through riveted armor. See, the problem we have here is how was it set up? This is where we start running into problems. Was the armor on something that gives like a body? I mean, of course, my chest, got bone structure in it. It can still give some, but that's against bone. But let's say against my belly, it would give even more, right? Because obviously you're not going to be sitting there with an arrow coming and know it's coming and be like in boxing and breathe out and tighten up, right? But you're still going to have some give, and then you're going to have your padding or something under it. Several layers of cloth. I mean, people argue in the Viking Age they did not wear gambesons, but in my belief, they would wear something under there to help pad them and help aid in the protection. The heavier the mail, the less padding you need. I mean, the padding does absorb blows, depending if you're getting hit with axes, something solid, the impact. Anything that hits like a cudgel or a mace or a hammer or an axe is going to damage people through mail. It can, depending on how much padding you have. And everybody could go, wow, well, we'll put this much gambeson and it'll be like really, really thick. But if you start putting all that under there, you're going to start looking like the Michelin Man or something. You can't really do that. So, not have your mobility. You're going to overheat, So heavier mail, you'll see it's heavier in weight, but you'll see less padding. Lighter mail, if it's trying to be used standalone, you'll see more padding. So did they set the test up properly? Did they have enough layers of cloth behind it? Because all that stuff makes a difference. It helps eat up energy. The thing about arrows is they travel really, really fast, but they don't have a lot of mass. Early medieval arrows do have more mass, but they're not extremely heavy. It's not a thrown javelin or spear. And the argument there is like a thrown spear. If it's a heavyweight spear, then not just a lightweight javelin. Javelins are usually lighter, so you can carry more of them, throw them farther, and so on. But if it's a heavy spear thrown up close, yes, that does have a possibility to pierce a lot of different males. Possible. Doesn't mean it will, but there's a good possibility. So as the modern compound bow, different. It is set up to have higher velocity with a lighter arrow compared to most medieval bows. It's more efficient. It's not a higher poundage, like a higher pound draw, where you pull back to a max and you have to stop, hold it. That's why they release really quick with longbows. Watch people that pull longbows. They pull back and they release quickly because they don't want to hold it there. It doesn't break over or anything like that to a lighter weight. But the way they do the modern bows is it has high velocity for a low arrow, so they're very energy efficient. So the joules behind it is probably up there with some of the older bows that are higher poundage. But as for it being special to pierce it, maybe modern arrowheads that are hardened steel, razor sharp, they can cut rings if they're smaller gauge rings. So, it just depends. I think you could set the test up either way. I could probably stack the test where it wouldn't go through if I wanted to set the nail up right with proper padding or ballistics gel, because ballistics gel has give to, like flesh. So it would help eat up energy. And I hope I answered that properly. I was like, kind of talked too long of it. Oh, Scalagram did the video. Okay, and this is from Norse Gamer 5489. All right. No, I will have to check out the video. But there are reasons to that. Nowadays we try to get the most out of everything we can. It's kind of like it's just the way it works. Like firearms and everything are way more powerful than early black powder weapons. Like the old muskets and stuff didn't have the same riflings. The rounds didn't fit tightly in there. The steel wasn't as good. There's reasons for that. They didn't want to blow their firearm up. Nowadays, we know exactly how strong the steel needs to be. We know how tight the tolerance can be, and so on with the round in there. Early period, they just took a round and put a patch around it and crammed it down in a boreless barrel. So they had very poor accuracy. They just used larger rounds. It's just a method of trying to make early firearms weren't that effective. We've had them since around the 14th century, but you don't hear of anybody dying in armor with firearms in Europe hardly. It's very rare, unless it's a large cannon or something later on. So I think it should be seen with a grain of salt. Yeah. I like Scalagram. He's cool. We've done some videos where we actually talk and discuss different subjects and stuff like that. I want to do a collaboration with him again in the future if it works out. I know he's pretty busy. I would love Zombie Go Boom to send me. I know Chuck Murray. He's a friend of mine, and people have accused me of ripping him off for the gel heads. That we used in the video. What happened is we did a crossover with him, and we had nothing like an analog ballistics gel head. Okay, so what I originally did is I had a male, farm head, and made a mold of it that was almost a half mold, a little bit more, right? And I found out how to make ballistic gel because I've been testing it and examining it. Do we want to use it on the channel? Is it that effective? That's why there's a video where I thought it was effective to test. By itself, it's effective against, I would say, like thrown weapons, arrows, and stuff like that because of the drag. It's not so much resist stuff as it goes in. It's because it's these things that are slower moving things, not ballistics, like high speed ballistics like from firearms. It has a drag to it. It has to do with the water, like shooting into water effect, and then it having a cellulose when it comes to firearms of high speed. But like cutting into it and stuff like that, if you use the right, in my mind, the right proportions of it, like about a 20% gel or something, or 10 to 15% gel, somewhere in the range, it works pretty good on cutting. It works okay. I wouldn't say it's exact on cutting. Everybody tries to act like it's an exact medium. It's not exact, but combined with the heads we make, they're pretty good. But what ended up happening is I was trying to figure out what to use for a skull. And we're doing this collaboration with Zombie Go Boom, right? And we're doing the Drauber, the historical Drauber instead of the zombie, because it was kind of a crossover thing between us. And I was like, well, what if I use all natural things? Originally, I had a wooden spine as a neck. I thought about Gilligan's Island. I had a coconut for a skull, which, if you do some research, they're pretty good. I mean, they're not bad for trying to simulate a skull. A lot of cultures have used those for just cutting into, see if they can smash into a head or cut through a head. And people argue they're weaker if you set them out on the table and they're dry, like you get them, like somebody ships them to you. Yeah, they're not like a real head. But after they're set in the gel, totally in there for a day, several days, when it's setting up, they tend to become more, I guess they absorb the moisture out of the gel because there's water in real ballistics gel. I mean, like traditional ballistics gel. Gelatin, not the new synthetics and stuff. Scalibrim, I think, uses the synthetics. Those new heads use a synthetic. That's why they can ship it to you and it doesn't have to stay a certain temperature. See, when I test a head, I have to bring it outside and it's a hot summer or whatever. I got to get out there right then when I'm going to test it and use it right away because it becomes weaker as it heats up. It has to stay cold. Okay, that's another problem. I've noticed a lot of these videos online, and I'll see them, not to say they're cold steel, and they're cutting into some of these, and you just see the gel look, it looks like they set their thing out there, and it had been sitting there a really long time, and the gel's just, turning into like Jello or something. It's not that weak at that point, but it's pretty weak. So, no, but the whole point was we made these heads that were half a head almost. We tried to color them blue, which I probably should have done. They did not look like ballistic gel, even though it was. And then Chuck Murray says, "Thrand, those are okay, but you need to do a full head." And he came up with all these other ideas how to do the spine out of the proper PVC pipe, or that's what he uses in his heads originally. So it's full of blood. So if you decap, at least you have blood because you don't have arteries and stuff. The head has blood in it. The coconut's full of it. It's sealed up. But as it sits in there, I swear to you, yes, it's a totally different animal. The coconut doesn't behave in the same way anymore. You'd have to try it. If you try it, you'll see what I mean. I think York Sprave uses coconuts in gel too, like big old blocks of it to test some of this stuff. But also we put the jaw in there because we want some kind of facial structure. I need something affordable that we could do. Made it out of PVC as well. And we had some viewers who saw an episode on Mythbusters. So I don't know who that is out there, but I thank you for this. They talked about putting a artery in the neck because Mythbusters did that to test and see if you could cut something through somebody's throat with something, And they had a really hard time doing it because I think they use the same kind of tubing I do. But certain things, unless they're swords, have a really hard time of cutting an artery. So in my mind, I justify it thinking, will there be ligaments in the neck? I don't think that's right. It would be just like the ballistics gel. It would be harder to cut because it's so sinewy and so many ligaments. So I think it's fine for swords. Just a lot of smaller blades. I think you probably cut into an artery possibly with the smaller blades when it doesn't cut through. So it's pretty resilient. But Chuck Murray helped come up with the ideas on how to put it together and collaborated on it. So it's not like I'm ripping him off. But our heads are pretty good in my mind, but I would love to have one of his and compare it to one of ours, like have them side by side, do one and then do the other with the exact same weapons. Because I saw Scalibrim having problems with cudgels, maces. I'm talking about like a 3-foot long pole, and he has a metal mace head on there, swings it overhead, two-handed, coming down, and it didn't seem to do anything to that head. The new ones he's got that you're talking about. He told me they were on sale for $100. I know that Chuck Murray's doing very poor, as we are, financially, so he was offering me one for $100, and I'm sitting there going, that's a good sale, I guess, but I can't afford $100 unless somebody wanted to donate it, for the channel to test one of the heads. I'd love to. I want to test real tatami compared to our poor man's tatami. The reason I use the rolled wet newspaper is you can look into it. It is something people hate to cut. It's harder to cut than tatami for the size. It's harder to cut, and it's harder to cut cleanly. So a lot of times if something's not 100% clean, even with a nice katana or something I test, and you look at it, it's like a little tear. That's not the same as judging it on actual tatami. Like if you're at a competition like Tamashigeti, totally different medium, And also, I hate to say it, but all those things, it has to do with how they're prepped. You've got to get the tatami. Tatami's usually soaked. Tatami Mote's old tatami. That's the flooring mats that have been used, so they're cheaper. But the problem is I don't like about that is it's bad for blades. It has it could have sand in it and stuff like that. So when you cut through it, it's like cutting into sandpaper or something. More likely to damage an edge or something. So at least the newspaper is safe on the edges. I mean, in that respect, it puts a lot of force on it. It's hard to go through it. I mean, it's like cutting through a green tree branch or something. It's like, and I use I try to go to the real extreme sizes and really dense rolls. So, and I don't soak them that long because honestly, you can soak it too long. But I'd love to do some tatami and compare to actually the poor man's tatami that I may have an episode on that. Test both the, some katana and some European blades against it. If anybody's interested in seeing that, let me know. Try to see what people are saying. Yeah, of course we're to celebrate. That's what we got here. Sorry, some things I'm not answering, and the only reason why is because it's not appropriate for the channel. Doesn't mean I don't agree with you, but it's just not appropriate for the channel. I don't mind you saying it. You say whatever you feel, I'm not going to get mad anymore. Hans Schultz. You eat blackberries. Some flake Eric's made mushrooms. Oh, thank you from Norway. We're starting to get a few more viewers. It looks like I only have 36 people here. Nice. I've been on an hour. Oh, did you have a question? These people sent some money. I'm sitting here. Do they have a question? Do I have to click on this to get the question, or did you just say hello? You just sent the money. Then I mean, if you have a question, let me know. I'll answer it. I know somebody sent me a donation here. I'm trying to figure out what they did. Oh, you just said hello. Okay, fine. I don't know how it works, and I'm scared. Like if you all guys are saying, here's a donation for the channel, that's great. But if you want a specific thing answered, I want to know so I can click on it and everybody's not mad at me. It's like so they're ignoring people's questions that hate me. Oh, it's in the middle of the night where you're at. Squash the eyeball. Oh, and from Denmark. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, and good night to you too, and cheers. Where are you located at? Squash the eyeball, I guess. That's what I'm saying. Oh, okay, some donate. If they have a question, they put in the box for me. So I haven't seen one yet. So the other gentleman, Sam, is hail. So hail back. I was just making sure I'm doing things right. I've never done this before. I thought it would be fun to try out and see how the system works. Sorry about coming up late. Had Caddy in here working diligently trying to figure out why it didn't go up. I use, I think I told people this at the beginning, but I'll say it again so people know because I'm just now getting more viewers. We didn't come up right at 2 o'clock. Originally, I wanted 1 o'clock, but I didn't know how the thing works. So it kind of has a countdown coming up. But it only works on Google Chrome. And I use Mozilla Firefox. And I've been using it for years because, I help people with their computers and to keep them safe and protected. Mozilla has a lot of protective features, and it's cool. It asks you for everything. If you're going to do something, you need to ask them, do you want to do this? It doesn't let somebody just put something on your computer. So I recommend Mozilla Firefox on advertising here to y'all, but I had to get Google Chrome just to use this. It wouldn't let me use it on Mozilla Firefox. And I'm like, really? No way. I was like, I had to wait to come up. I was like, it's hard. Had her sit here and put in Mozilla Firefox for me. Not Mozilla Chrome, Google Chrome. But I'm assuming they're making you use Chrome because it's Google. AdSense is through Google. All this stuff's through Google. Not that I have a problem with Google. I just hope they would fix their algorithms and not assume everybody out there is trying to teach people how to do horrible, evil things or promote evil ideologies. A lot of it's just like history. We love all cultures. We like experimenting with stuff, and it has nothing to do with harming anybody. It's just good old fun. It's just like watching old Mike loads on the History Channel or a program you like. It has nothing to do with, we want to test stuff and we want to interact with each other and have a community that's about our ancestors and ancient arms and armor and figure out how they worked, and how they used them, because we don't see that every day. If it was like an everyday thing, I would probably be bored with it by now. We know what that does. So we'd probably be trying to find better ideas and techniques on how to do it. So we'd probably still be sitting here discussing that. Yeah, it's pretty crazy how they assume everybody's up to something, or they take your video down and there's not a thing. I've put things up that have, these tags are hard. Well, they're gonna look at it. They're gonna assume it's this. And they're gonna assume, I'll put it up, no problems. Doesn't seem to get flagged. It doesn't get taken down. I don't have to wait for it to get reviewed. And then I put other stuff up that seems totally all right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the content. It's got all bunnies and rainbows in it. I'm joking. I didn't say that, but I'll say I had that in the. And they take it down instantly. Boom, it's off. Like, what's going on? I have to wait like a while for it to go back up and have ads on it or monetization. So I don't know. I don't understand what they're looking for. Let's see. Anything goes. Love your channel, big guy. Thanks for streaming. No problem. I'm glad y'all appreciate it. I was afraid a lot of people wouldn't be into it and would hate it. So that's why I didn't do it. I've done a few, like when we had a storm coming in. We had Hurricane Harvey coming here. And yes, I did go out there and they're really high winds, and I was wearing a helmet or a helmet. Figured Thor would protect me. Thrand goes down by a storm. That was really bad. Oh, I'd love to go to Pinzik or Gulf Wars. And yes, those are Gulf Wars I've been to several times, but back in the past. Pinzik I've never actually got to go to. I know the legends and stories of Pinzik. A lot of my fellow SCAers from this area go. Yes, I'm a member of the SCA, Society of Creative Anachronism, and I don't think that means you can't practice HEMA or hang out with other people into HEMA. You just have to realize there are different forms of combat. One's based on tournament style fighting and a way to simulate wars and battles, which HEMA normally doesn't do grand melees. They do sometimes have melees. Yes, I'm not saying they don't or have multiple people on one, but it's to simulate large wars with the shields and spears and do it in a manner where hopefully no one gets hurt, although some people do get hurt, but it's usually not from what we do so much as stepping in a hole, wearing a lot of armor, running, and dislocating a knee is not good. I've seen people do that before, especially big guys. There's a lot of big guys that like to do it. But no, I'd love to go to Pinzik, and I'll try to see if I can get to Gulf War again. I have 3 boys, and some of you know them as the Viking kids because they have their own channel. That's what one of them wanted for his birthday. Garrick wanted it more than anything. He swears he's a ninja or shinobi no mono. He loves that, and he likes Vikings. And then we've got a Nyala weapon master, and he will go set up stuff all day long because he watches me and practice hitting his stuff, his heads, chopping them. It's pretty hilarious. That's why you've seen some videos of him. We don't get him to do that. He watches me do it. And my wife goes over there since it's not illegal or somebody films that, and I end up putting it in something because it's good. So we started doing a channel with them. It doesn't have a lot of subscribers. It's called Viking Kids. They even have their own shirts because they wanted one because Daddy had one, so they have to have something. So I was like, I did it for them. Why not? If somebody's interested in it, they'll enjoy it. I want to put more stuff out, but I like to put stuff out like we did with the York Sprave thing, where I actually made some special, very light, like 5% ballistic shell. A little bit better than Jello, so they could shoot their really weak slingshots into it and stuff like that because they liked his game. They play his game all the time. York Sprave's a slingshot game. They love that thing. We played it for a while, but it is. I mean, it says it get burned out after a while. I did, but the boys don't. They'll sit there and play that thing forever. One of their favorite games. But no, I have 3 children. Get back to the subject, and that's why it's hard to. If it's just me and Caddy, we could jump up and go to Gulf War or something, or we could try to make plans for Pinzik. But I do have a mundane life, and I work too. I don't just do videos. Like obviously, we barely make enough to at this point to continue the videos. I can see how people who, like Chuck Murray, employed a lot of people, had to fire people or lay people off that were helping them because they can't afford it. At least in my situation, I do it because I love doing it. I'm kind of wondering what to do because it starts getting to the point where I have to put our actual money into it, like a lot of our money into it, to keep it going. it hurts. You can't do it. You're just like, I mean, I'm sorry. It's like I want to put something out, but I can't because I have three boys, and it's the same thing with the events. We have to have the money to go up there, and I can take off time from other work that I do, go up there and to the event. And I would love to go traveling a lot, go to different events, and to different other events and things. Like there's some HEMA events and stuff I'd like to go to, and living history type things. I like that as well, like the Young Sport Vikings up in Waco, stuff like that. It's hard to get to that anymore. I used to, I could just, I was single and have a bunch of children, which I'm not saying that's what I'd rather have. I could just jump up and go. So it was really, you know, you could tell me I'm going there or Thrand, you're going, I'm going, oh, yeah, you know, we're going and be there, be in that battle. Oh, thank you. Morse Gamer says my videos are more historical education on anything. I try my best. That's what I want to focus on, history, and actually analyzing that. I mean, I can analyze modern reenactment fighting, but then you don't have the real aspects. And I think that's what keeps somebody watching that does modern reenactment fighting. They want to know more about what it would be like if I was using the actual weapons in that battle and I had to take this guy out, you know. So that, yes, all the timing and the techniques are there in the fighting. I mean, yeah, I've even done a LARPing style stuff. My boys like going out to fight at Amped Guard, and some people will laugh about that. You know, it's like the live action D&D thing, but it's fun. You still learn something about timing and how to defend yourself and stuff like that. For some people, that's a good way if they can't do anything else to at least get into the feel of what it is and have an understanding of it. Now, you can't go, this is a real sword and this is how you sword fight, because no, it would be something totally different. But as for moving around, getting physically active and having some fun, I mean, I'm not somebody that's going to put somebody down that wants to go out there and do that. That may be all they can do. Maybe they don't have good health, if that's what they want to do, and they want to be able to at least have some kind of sword play. I think the healthier you are and the more you get into it, then yeah, you might get into some more extreme fighting or get into serious HEMA and techniques right out of the manuals and and follow them completely, or get into the SCA and throw blows. I mean, heck, one of my good friends, Randall or Randy, is actually part of the American team, and I used to fight with him here in Corpus Christi, Texas, in Sea Winds. He's a big, I mean, he's a bull-like character. You know, he's a big red-headed, you know, kind of like an Angus or something. You know, he's huge, right? He used to be able. He's a football player. He could bench like 500 pounds. This is not a joke, right? But he's part of the American team in the War of the Nations and all that. They won. I mean, he's seriously, he really is. He's a friend of mine on Facebook, and more power to you out there. I don't know if he's going to see this, but he was awesome. He's a good fighter. He's always been. He's gifted. It's not just his size and strength. He's really skillful. I mean, being a football player and everything, he has the athletic skill, and he knows his swords pretty well. Donate through PayPal. Somebody's saying something to donate to Zombie Go Boom. ThegnThrand at yahoo.com is an email address. ThegnThrand at yahoo.com. It's just like the name of the channel. Is my PayPal ID. So if anybody wanted to ever do that, like donate a few money, I mean, I'm not trying to sit here and beg for money. I'm just saying if you want to do it, you can do it through there and not go through Patreon, where you have to remember to cut it off, you know, or they'll keep charging you. But on Patreon, I'm trying to get more material up that's Patreon only. But then again, I don't like to leave stuff up too long there forever where no one gets to see it. So I'll leave it on Patreon for a good length of time if it doesn't have a date it's going to be shut off. And eventually I'll either re-edit it and put it out on YouTube if it's something really good that I think a lot of people should see. But I do try to put something out on Patreon that's unique. So you get something for donating, and you can see videos early. I mean, even if it's only, like, let's say I edited one, I got it done at 7 o'clock yesterday, and I'm going to put it out 2 o'clock today. Well, I'll at least put it out overnight. So if you donate at least $1 and something like that, you're going to get to see that video early before anybody else and give your opinion. If there's something wrong with it, I hope you would tell me there. You know, it's kind of a review idea, like, hey, Thrand, this you made a mistake, or mislabeled this, or this sucks, or you know, something, so I can know, because I usually will change it up if I have to before the final release. But I'll give you that rough edit when I first think I have it done. You'll have it overnight at least, if not for 2 or 3 days. And I try to do that to at least make people happy. And plus, I give discounts if you're a patron. If you want to buy the shirts, I'm wearing one of the old shirts here. And sadly enough, I don't have any of my new shirts because I haven't ordered any of them. I plan on doing it to have some of the newer shirts to wear on the channel. but I haven't had the money to order my own shirts, even though I get some of the money back for ordering them. That's pretty bad. Oh, that's at Viral Style if you're interested in shirts. I'm just saying, if you want to go by there, you can go to the YouTube channel, and it'll actually have a link to it. It makes it easier because the URL's some ridiculous thing for the item store. And we have some mugs made by viewers. Uh, I've got his name in my head and can't even think of it right this second. But Brad Lynn did a lot of the artwork, and we have some other stuff that was suggested or made by viewers in Caddy, like some different joke shirts and mugs and stuff like that. If you're interested in the coffee mugs and stuff, some say ThegnThrand on the back, some don't if you just want the logo, so you don't have to. Oh, I'm doing good today. Bandit 101 asked me how I'm doing. I'm doing fine. Oh, none of them suck. Okay, thank you. Anything goes. Watched lots of my videos and awesome. Well, some of our older videos, I'm sorry, we would come outside and remember, it was hard to work with Elder. Okay? So a lot of times I want to wear garb or something, throw something good on, like I do a lot of times now. It is hot here. This is South Texas, and I don't know if you all know how much 100 degrees is. We're talking 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, not Celsius, but it's hot, right? We're talking almost desert climate other than really high humidity because we are by the ocean, right? This is Corpus Christi, which is on the Gulf of Mexico. So we have hurricanes and stuff here, and palm trees. People have said they've seen palm trees here. But the whole point is we'd go outside and just wear a t-shirt, some shorts, like you walk around here because it's so hot. Whatever kind of shoes, Heck, some of my first videos, I didn't even have shoes on. Pretty crazy. The first videos, if you pay attention, the Viking versus Samurai stuff, I wasn't even wearing shoes. I was just barefoot. But anyway, the whole thing I'm getting at is we just go outside and shoot the videos. And the thing with the sleeveless shirts is it was hot. And the thing was, it was hard to get Elgin to wear anything, so he would get mad if I wore something else. If I wore garb and he wasn't, he'd that's not right. I don't want to put that on. It's hot. So it was kind of like one of those things we'd have the creative difference thing. Who cares what we're wearing? It's a test that counts. So some of our older videos seemed pretty primitive, or we couldn't afford what we needed, so we just worked with what we had at the time. And we didn't know it was going to turn into a channel, and we were going to try to. I always want to do more historical testing, but we didn't really realize at the time that we were going to have more of an ability to do more, put more out. It was just like these videos we were going out there and just doing and putting up originally. I'm going to be honest with you. We're just like, put some videos up. We didn't even know about monetization, just throw something up because we wanted to and we enjoyed it and try to make our point. Like people were saying this, well, instead of talking in a chat room online or something, because they had Viking versus Samurai out or talking to people about stuff, we just try to get up and shoot a video and put out what we thought we knew that was accurate. And that's it. So as it went on, then it turned into this is what I like doing, and I'm not going to stop. And I want to try to make it as accurate and entertaining and with as much historical research as I can put into the subject that I'm doing. So the older ones, I'm saying some people might say they suck or just get turned off because of the whole, the yard was messy at that time. Oh, you didn't mow your grass right then. I get that one a lot. Hey, about the claymore, where I used the claymore to cut with. And why did you cut your grass? Well, that's an ongoing joke. I don't really mind. I'm not mad at anybody. But I was like, makes me wonder if some people don't realize that something happened in that specific video. What happened is Caddy is going to run out there with a weed whacker and clear it, and it broke. Wasn't working. And I'm going to be honest, my neighbor is a yard man, and that's what he did he worked at a landscaping place, and he works on stuff like that. So he was going to repair it for us. So he was working on repairing it. I had all the heads done. And Marquez, it's been in a lot of our videos. He's a reenactor too. He goes to the SCA, fights in armor. So it was his idea. He was filming it. It wasn't Elgrim that filmed that day. It was him. And it was his idea to do all these heads. As a matter of fact, he is the one who helped me improve the heads by investing money in the mold and stuff. Because he wanted to see it. I want to see something like you would see from the Shamrock Studios, like the heads that you see. So we went to all the trouble to make these heads, and we made 3 of them. And the heads deteriorate. Like I told you can't keep them too long, even in a fridge. You can't keep them in the mold forever. They had to come out of the mold, and they had to set in a fridge. So we were at very little fridge space. I had I have a huge fridge now and extra backups and stuff. But back then, I only had a small one. We'd have all those heads in there, and we had to shoot the episode that day. It's the only day he could help me, and he's the one who helped me make all these heads, bought all the materials for it. bought the mold that we made, the actual mold. I use the same one to this day. So it's kind of like do or die. Yards, grass is high, we got to shoot it. So we shot it anyway. And a lot of the situation in some of the episodes, like back in the day where we had a bunch of garbage out there, my mother had passed away. I hate to say this, but she was a hoarder. So we couldn't throw all the garbage out in the very front, everything we were getting rid of. So at one time we looked like Sanford and Son, we looked like a junkyard because we were slowly putting it out so they wouldn't fine us to get rid of it when I first moved into the house. So these videos are that old. They go back that far. That some of it brings up bad memories for me. So I've said that to people, like, thanks for reminding me of a bad time, you know. But I mean, I'm not really being mean to people. I just know that things change, and they should realize that one video can be shot and look one way one day, and the yard can be totally different the next day. So, I will shoot most of them in my backyard. I mean, it's easier to do. It's safer. I'm not going to have somebody attacking me for having sharp blades at a pretty park somewhere chopping stuff. I go on location to do certain videos, but even though blades are illegal in Texas now, I do think if I went and started setting shell heads up at the park and stuff and chopping heads, you know, near trees and stuff, that if somebody has some small children out there sees me doing that, even though it's at a distance, they might have a complaint about it. And yes, I could get in trouble at a private park like that, swinging live blades around. Although we were allowed to have like a firearm, like you can have in your front yard, I can walk out with a pistol on my head in Texas, as long as I'm in my yard and I'm not just running down the street without a concealed carry, and I'm legal to have it. I can do that, but I can't pull that pistol out, wave it around, and I can't like fire it off into the ground or something, or you know, I would go to jail. You know, that's just the way it works. So, so I kind of feel the swords, even though they've made them legal now, and I'd like to do an open carry sword thing and show that you can really carry your blade any type down the street here. I'm thinking about doing that. Marquez is kind of reluctant against it. He was the one